First off, welcome. The calendar part of this is something that I really feel like everyone needs to take this, use it as a guideline, but then develop your own local, personal calendars. And I do want to tell you, pretty well anything I tell you can and will be held against you in a court of law. So you need to consider that. So just we're going to make this as enjoyable as we can. I know we've got a long day. I'm a pretty serious person when it comes to planning. So that's pretty well my motto on calendars. That was today, huh? Okay. And sometimes in Deer Park, that's kind of the way things go. I don't know about your school district, but we do try to stay with the calendar. We try to work with things and try to stay ahead of them. And the one thing that we're going to find out, Ann and I, our districts are probably, if you went as close to Friendswood as you could in the Deer Park district and as close to Deer Park as you could in the Friendswood district, we're probably less than 10 miles apart. We both have one high school. I'm 5A, Friendswood's 4A. That's the only difference. And our jobs are totally different. So that's the one thing. There's no, except for a few things, like when Perkins is due, there's really no cookie cutter thing that we can just hand you and make it say, okay, this is it. You don't have to worry about it. Here it is. Because you're going to have to develop this as you go along. So anyway, getting started, I've asked Ann to help me. And what I want you to do at your tables, I'm going to start over here on the far end. If y'all would do, we're going to split this up. And I want you to work at your tables. And I'm going to give you a month. And you take the handout that you have and add to, take away from, put your thoughts in there, and we're going to come back and let you tell us what you think, okay? And we're going to throw in some other stuff. So why does it start in July? That's kind of weird, huh? Anybody know? Fiscal year, right. Okay. July, August, September, October, November. I hope this works out right. December, January, February, March, April, May, June. Wow.
I know.
Amazing.
You'd think he'd planned it.
So if y'all would work together with people at your table and add or take away from. And one thing you're going to learn about CTE, you don't want to be an island. You want to have a bunch of CTE friends around you. So keep that in mind, and we'll come around and y'all visit. It's way too quiet in here right now. Y'all need to be visiting. Okay, if I can have your attention, we'll try to go ahead and get started. What I'd like to do is start over here with July. And Ann, let me borrow the microphone, and I'll let them have the microphone. And we need a spokesperson from each table, and there are no right or wrong answers, so, and we certainly don't know all the answers, so spokesperson. Going once. Not going, there you go.
Look at that.
I like your shirt.
Thank you. I do what I can to keep you happy. All right, good morning. We have the month of July. Some of the things that, and everyone took notes depending on their school or their district. But some of the things we came up with besides what's already printed were prepare, and not only prepare, but submit Perkins. We know that Perkins comes available usually in June, so hopefully submit it in July. Order supplies and curriculum for the upcoming school year. Do any presentations to the board on new courses or any changes for the CTE program. What were some of the other ones?
July 1, we ordered all our computer labs. We hit that date, started ordering computer labs and getting that done, and we also laid out our professional development plan for our CTE teachers that we were going to present in August when they came back.
Something that, especially for us who are brand new to it, you might definitely want to consider joining the TA listserv so that you can get all the documentation or the upcoming events.
Okay, anyone else have anything that we might want to document? One thing they said that's real important is Perkins. We met here for this phase 3 of this session in June, And Alan Kaminsky said, hey, I've already got my Perkins done. And I said, what? I hadn't even started on mine. So some people are very proactive. They want to jump on that. Vanjie, I think that we actually got our grant early, all the information early June, right? Or was it even late May? So it was out early. So some people, like me, procrastinate, and others, like Alan, jump on it and get it done. I will say this, if you're going to use Perkins for any July travel, you need to make sure you have it submitted before you start using it. Okay, just make a note of that. And in July, some of you may use it for FFA, and some of you may use it for professional development conferences, so that's something that just be aware of that. You can't use it until you've submitted it. Okay? Is this August?
For the month of August, we really thought that was a pretty complete list, and we didn't have anything to add to it. But we certainly could be wrong with that, but we felt that it was pretty inclusive.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to add for August? Ann?
In some districts, your HR folks will want you to help review the teaching assignments and assess the percentage of the day that folks are working with CTE instruction. I know that was an annual event on our campus where we reviewed who was doing what and what could be charged, what portion of the salaries could be charged to a CTE budget, because not all of our folks were full-time CTE. So depending on your district, that may be a task that the CTE office is involved in. And also just double checking those certifications to be sure that everybody's absolutely clear. And if you've hired anyone that had to have paperwork pending through HR, supporting that process with your human resources department is, we always worked in tandem. So just another thought on that. And of course the staff development was covered on that piece, but also just looking at policies and procedures for the year and how you're going to push forward within your CTE department. Be sure your staff are all on the same page there.
You know what's amazing is people that aren't in education, they look at you as a 12-month employee, if you are, and they say, what do you do all summer? There's no kids. And I'd say, we don't do it. We play solitaire on the computer and stuff like that. Now, don't tell them that, but the thing about it is they have no clue. And sometimes your teachers will wonder, what do you do all summer? We're not here.
You might make sure that all your new teachers have their mentors.
All new teachers need their mentors assigned. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. One thing that was mentioned over in the July part is join your listserv. We have Vanjie has a awesome TEA listserv. There's a grant listserv. There's your Region Service Center listserv. Ann and I are in Region 4, and our Region 4 CTE person is Monel Rougeau, and we're actually using a few cheat notes off the calendar that was put together collaboratively by Region 4, Region 10, I don't know, several folks. Region 20, Lamar CISD, Spring Branch, and A-Leaf. So I'm telling you, one thing in CTE is you really need to work together. Okay, September.
Okay, we again thought this list was pretty comprehensive. We had more of a question about that last bullet, the TEA-sponsored CTE professional development events. Is that what we're doing right now? Yeah, okay. Yes. So is there opportunity for teachers to do that during the summer so they're not taking off the...
Right. Almost every area has a professional development conference. I would say every area has one. And I encourage my teachers to go. It's probably 50-50. They're off, so you really can't force them to go. Our ag teachers always go because they're on 226, usually family consumer science, business teachers, health science teachers. But I have some that don't go, and we just encourage them to go. We use local funding to pay for their expenses when they do go. We pay for their registration, their hotel, travel, meals, and so on and so forth. Okay.
In your notebooks, there's a tab on professional associations, and that's where you can find information to lead your teachers to their professional development conferences. and they do happen in the summer. And yeah, some just have extended days and folks can go. Some folks go and districts will pay their travel. Some folks just go and cover it all. So it varied practices from district to district.
And Vanjie will send a list out about usually around May, and it'll list all the summer conferences for your specific teachers. And as soon as I get that, I shoot it out to them and say, here's your summer training opportunity if you can plan to go.
One other thing we thought of was we'd like to have an evening, meet the department chairs in September to disseminate information and get that communication going with the campuses.
Oh, he did an awesome job. Okay. One thing you may want to think about is kind of starting to work with your special ed department, putting ARDs together. And it is important that you do have a CTE representative in all of the ARDs. And our ARDs used to be at the very end of the year, but now they do it, I believe, on the students the month of their birth date. So they're spread out throughout the year except for those summer months. So that's something important that you want to make sure you have representation at that point. One note that we have on the kind of cheat sheet from Region 4, the one that was put together by a group of people, it says meet with a PRS coordinator. So this morning about 7:15, I text Monell and I said, I'm not sure what PRS is, and if it doesn't stand for something pregnant, I have no idea. And she said, well, she texted me back. And that's what I'm saying, teamwork. 7:30 in the morning, she's texting me back, and she said it's pregnancy-related services. Some of you deal with that, some of you don't. But I will tell you, if you're running a little short on money, they're worth 2.41. So you can go find out who's pregnant in your school, put them in a CTE class, and get a little more funding. Remember, anything I say can and will be held against you in a court of law, right? Okay. Don't encourage that, though. October.
Okay, guys, we had October, and again, everything in here we didn't think of anything to pull out as far as you had mentioned earlier about the budgets. Ours rolled over again in July, and I was ready to have mine passed out to my staff pretty early before school started. Also a reminder to you that in October is snapshot to make sure that you've got your information correct and set to your administrative office so that all of that looks correct.
Anybody know when snapshot is? The last Friday in October. Always, it moves around a little bit, so just kind of keep, and it's very important that you do have kind of your stuff together. I have a wonderful CTE coordinator, and she's actually started on it yesterday. So she's kind of getting that all lined up. Oh, one thing that we didn't mention, PBM, or PBMAS. Yeah, I know. Somebody said, oh, gosh. I feel your pain. Been there, done that. Yesterday, Vanjie introduced a distinguished-looking group up front and said they're from the monitoring and compliance, I think. And they are your friends because they do come in your district to help you get things straight. If you can keep things straight and keep them out of your district, that's a whole lot better off. Okay, that's the plan. And but usually about early September, someone in your district is going to get the PBM report, and then you'll know about staging sometime in October. And keep your fingers crossed that you don't have any stages of intervention. And the lower your numbers, the better off you are. Zeros are wonderful. Okay? Fours are not good. Okay, September, October, November.
We had November. I'm going to borrow yours.
Good.
Because actually,
you got it.
We didn't know we had November. We were talking about, for some reason, we talked about what they did about May and June, about the application being released and starting to work on that.
Back in September, we start what we call our career reviews. The students go into a system online, and they do through their classes, their social studies classes, or either through the career classes. They start reviewing their career clusters and what they want to do. And then in October, all of our students go in and create their 4-year plan. which generates the master schedule for the following year. That way it's reviewed by the counselors and the teachers and special ed, and by December, before they leave on Christmas break, they're handed their schedules for the following year.
Wow, awesome.
We start in June before we leave. Everybody has to have their pieces submitted of the courses they're going to have for the following year. Yeah. And so we started actually in June, and last year was the first year we did that. Edgewood ISD. And we just started that, and last year it was our first year, so it kind of had its little issues, and then this year we're pretty well prepared for the students to start that. In fact, they started today putting in, we started a little bit early, they started putting in their 4-year plans.
And that's an online process.
I'm sorry? Yes, they're doing it online. It's we use the choices, and it's working out pretty good.
Good deal. What district are you?
Edgewood ISD in San Antonio.
Okay, good deal. Anyone else back there? You know, one note, and Ann and I are working together, and I can't remember which months we were supposed to be looking at, but about this time of year, you need to start looking at how much money you've spent and how much money you have left, and kind of start planning that. So, you know, it's just kind of a good time to check that out and kind of see where you are with your Perkins money and then your local budget. Okay, I think did we come back up here? December, Christmas month here. They only have 2 weeks, so shouldn't be hard to do.
Well, we'll just start.
I'm going to make a last comment on November. Depending on your district and your team status, you may very well be working with your team's coordinator to review all the fall snapshot data that was collected last Friday, and just review it for accuracy before it's shipped off. And so that's a common early November task for a lot of districts.
And there have been years I was working on PBMAS intervention in November because it was due December. So you don't want to go there. Okay.
All right. So December, nothing happens. We all know that. It's 2 weeks. We go home. But we do have, we added a few things. There is the Gulf Coast meeting for the folks in the Houston area. I'm sure other areas have their particular meetings going on for CTE as well. We have a local livestock show that is, you know, it's associated with the CTE department, so we do a lot of ordering and finalizing for that in the month of December, because when we come back from the Christmas break, bam, it's like right in our face. So we make sure all our ducks in a row for that, you know, in Humble. There were some other FCLA events going on in December as well. Ordering of awards, is that correct? Okay, entry for State Star events for FCLA. So that's done during the month of December. And then we also do some finalizing of PD for the following year. Professional development is done in December, and getting that ready to roll out for sometimes it's done a little bit before, sometimes a little bit after, so we stuck it in December.
How many of you have a local livestock show? Probably almost all of us. I know we do. It's very important that you're out there. It shows, and really not just your local livestock show. You're going to be asked, if you haven't already been, you're going to be asked to judge all kinds of CTSO events. That's real important that you participate as much as possible, because your teachers and the students see you there, and that's a strong sign of support. I mean, you can go to the football games and you know, you'll see some of your CTE kids there, but when you're at CTE events, I think that shows that you're really tied in and you're really hooked up with what they believe in, because they prepare long and hard for those events.
A number of the CTSOs have gone to online testing for the first level of their competition in December now, HOSA and DECA, and so you may or may not be involved with some of that, because the coordinators or the advisors for those chapters have to have somebody else run that online testing for them. They're not permitted, of course, to test their own students. So you may need to support that as a director or a principal so that your folks have their needs taken care of for those kids.
Anything else for December? We're done. We're done. Awesome. January. Steve, you want this?
We just reviewed the list for January. Thought most of those items were good, and had a couple of other things we wanted to add. Just campus recruitment visits in preparation for students making course selections. Depending upon how your campus or district works that process, it's a good time to get out to the campus and do some recruitment visits. And that last bullet on preparing activities for CTE Education Week and Education Month in February, making sure that you have all your presentations ready to go. It's a great time to make visits, get your show, visit the Rotary, visit the Kiwanis, visit the homeowners, anybody that'll listen, anybody you can talk to about CTE. It's a great time to do that right at the end of January in preparation for CTE month in February.
One thing that I found out the hard way was there is they do look at your data. And if you change a lot of things from the time you submit until the resubmission, you're probably going to get a little invite for them to come out to your district. Here's what happened to us, and I'm going to give you the real quick cliff notes because I know we're pretty good on schedule, but we submitted our data just like normal in the fall, and this is back when we had Tech Prep 3s. Well, we had a tech lab, and we had quite a few students in the tech lab in the 9th grade. Don't ask me how, but our computer system saw the word tech, and when we sent our submission in the fall, they were not 3s. They were not coded as 3s. But when we sent the January, when they looked at everything in January, they were coded as 3s. So we had like a 83% change in our submission. And that got a data validation of 4. And that means they're coming to see you. And I really didn't want them to come see me. And so we didn't know what had happened because we thought, well, we didn't, we just changed. We made there was a mistake. We corrected the mistake. Well, unfortunately for TEA, but fortunately for us, that's when TEA was going through some pretty severe budget cuts. And they said, we just don't have anybody we can send. So what we want you to do is get with somebody that's knowledgeable. And again, where'd we go? Our Region Service Center. And connect with them and let them do your intervention. And so we did. We had a lady that worked with PBMAS at Region 4, and we hired her, and we explained what we did, and she had to actually come out 4 times. Now, this is really luck, because she met with us one time, and everything was fine. We figured out what we did wrong and why we made those corrections, and then she left Region 4. Okay, so things are looking pretty good here for old David, And so we called Region 4 and we said, well, are you guys going to come back out? And they said, well, no. She said, y'all had everything under control, so I lucked out. She came out. We paid about $1,800 for her to drive from one side of Houston to the other, look at our paperwork, and she said, y'all are good. We see what happened. So your Region Service Centers, the folks from TEA, believe me, they're there to help you. And we didn't know that, we didn't realize the mistake. I would have never known that those students were coded as 3s if we wouldn't have had somebody looking at it.
And that harkens all back to the team's data that's actually submitted. And that's why I mentioned in November, you might want to work with your team coordinator. Depends on when your district submits their team's data. There's a November date, a December date, and a January date. Different districts turn it in at different times for that fall snapshot. But it does need to reflect accuracy for your program. And sometimes well-intended folks, misunderstand some of the labels that get thrown around within the CTE universe or within the TEA universe. So that's a great case in point.
Ann mentioned advisory committees or advisory councils, whatever you might call them in your local district. Probably need to kick that off maybe in October, at least by October.
Fall semester for sure.
Fall semester, yeah. And we I forgot to mention that. Another thing is probably most of you, if you're not already doing it, you're going to be invited to join in your district improvement plan committee. And by then, that's kind of a mid-year. I know in Deer Park we do a beginning of the year, mid-year, and end of year kind of thing. So that's something else that you may kind of be expected to be asked to be involved in.
Can your advisory committee be rolled into your campus improvement team?
It could, but our campus improvement team is more, because my advisory committee is strictly CTE, And the campus improvement team is more teachers, administrators, some community members, and parents.
Small district, though, it's the same people. I mean, is that advisable, not advisable?
Well, I'm kind of protective of my CTE folks, so I kind of like them to focus on my programs.
It represents a 5A district. Practices might be different, but I keep 2 sets of minutes and have them concurrent meetings and have them separate meetings with a separate focus. If you have a smaller district and it is literally the same people and you don't want to bring them out twice, you might start out one at 11:30 and the other at 1 o'clock and get them out the door at 2, you know. But there are different ways to handle it. Be creative for what works for you.
Okay, where are we? All right.
February is a very busy month. There's many activities going on. You have CTE Education Week and month activities. Something you may want to consider is writing press releases and submitting to your local media. That's also, we noticed there's a bullet here for review budget expenditures to date. We may want to consider expanding that monthly or every other month. Additionally, we had some really good discussion about that last bullet, conduct CTE program evaluations. Realistically, a lot of districts don't get that done in February, but the point was made that it's really good to do that early so that as you're considering master scheduling for the following year, you can go ahead and base some of those decisions on program evaluation data. The other thing is pre-registration activities for your middle school students, having them come to the high school to tour the CTE facilities. I suggest that you have that career interest in aptitude assessment done first. And so if the students are walking around with that in hand, they kind of know the areas they need to look at a little closer than others.
Right. Anyone else for February? One good thing or a lot of good things happen in February, but one of them is you might hear from your Perkins reallocation, and that's a little bit of extra money, so that's always a good thing. Okay, March.
Okay, for March, the one thing we did say that we agreed on we agreed on everything, but meeting the teachers regarding course offerings, we thought that was way too late, and we do like, the fact about meeting earlier in the early months of the school year. But as far as everything else, that looked good. One thing I wanted to also add was we're a small school, so our CTE teachers wear lots of hats, and they're competing for the same students, and some of the small schools may relate to this. So we have actually started last year, we had them start marketing their CTE programs, and so if we start that in January, in February when we're doing the CTE month and different things in recruiting, then that actually helps with course registration to kind of review what the offerings should be based on what students' needs or requests are.
Okay, anything else for March?
Oh, David, I'll just mention, in February it talked about the national CTE recognition, that CTE programs nationwide are celebrated in February during a National Career Tech Week. And if you're not familiar with that, you might want to go to the ACTE website and take a look at some of the possibilities. There are ways to locally celebrate your programs and your kids' accomplishments. That's the month I always did the board report for CTE to the school board, and we did lots of just things for the faculty and the kids and the campus that allowed folks to be aware of what we had going on. We just used that and kind of planned a program that would hit the community and the school board and the campuses that month in tandem with the National Career Tech Week, and it seemed to make sense to folks.
And sometimes you can do that, like Andy Masters said yesterday, you can spend just a little bit of money and get a big bang for the buck. You can just put out a blurb that says, in celebration of CTE month, the faculty's invited after school for Coke floats. Oh, they'll run over you for those things, So little things like that make a big difference. And it lets, there's people in my high school, I think we have about 170 teachers, they probably don't even know what CTE is. They're in their own little world up there, and they don't, and when they hear that we have half the students in our high school enrolled in CTE, they go, golly, I didn't know we did that. It's amazing. So, anyway.
We were April. One thing that we looked at were the closing of the expenditures. Usually we're told by our district when those are closed, and so we don't have a whole lot of control over either the federal or the local. We all agreed, though, that the summer in-service, we do that way before April. That's usually, I mean, we're already starting now for next summer's in-service for our CTEs. And we always are providing our input to the campus and the district. I mean, I like the way you said that we were invited to attend those meetings. I've never actually been invited, so I like that. So, anyway.
I was trying to be politically correct on that. One thing about Perkins, or your federal grant, and when we say federal money or Perkins, they're all in one and the same. You know, that money is to be spent for benefit of that grant year. Well, if you order something in April and you get it in May and school's out the end of May, you probably didn't benefit that much that school year. I try to take care of Perkins early on. And I know Vanjie's going to talk about that later, but that's just, if you're looking at Perkins money, what am I going to spend it on in April? You're kind of late.
And we'll go into more detail during budget session later in the day. But you don't want to wait until your district cuts off your expenditures for your budget to realize that you had a balance that could have been used for kids. So we'll talk about staying on the, just the lead edge of that so that you can pre-plan and make sure that you're where you want to be.
We have May, talks about the review of the district stars, assessment data. Oftentimes we don't have the data back, but help encourage the students during this testing time and work collaboratively with the academic teachers and trying to get those skills tuned right before they take the test. Secure the number of students and certifications and licensures attained. Just from coming in this summer and not having all of this information when it's time to get it ready for the Perkins grant, what I've kind of started doing is getting the certification information as they get their certifications. But I think the main thing in May is talking with your teachers of anything that you need information from them before they leave for the summer.
Right, and we made it part of our formal checkout process. Our faculty weren't able to check out until that was submitted and we signed off on it. Just every district will handle it differently, but it was just a measure for us to be sure in the busyness of closing the year that we didn't have to look up somebody's home phone and hope you weren't catching them in California or France when you were trying to do that report. Not that that would ever happen.
Yeah, and the last day checkout is crazy because everybody wants out of there really quick.
Yeah, so talking with your staff ahead of time and being specific on how you need to receive it. We need it by including ethnicity and gender, and sometimes you can get into your software systems and just pull all the stuff you need and it's no big deal. But sometimes it's easier if it's presented to you the way you're going to turn it around. So.
And how many of y'all actually participated in submitting your Perkins this year? Okay, if you didn't, you ought to go ahead and ask your, in our district, we go through our PEAMS person, but go ahead and get access to TEAL and TEAS, those two submission windows in the TEA portal, because you don't want to wait till you don't want to wait till August 14th to try that, okay? It's real important that you go ahead and get access to that if you don't already have it. Probably a lot of you already have it.
We're all kind of new to this, so everything we could think of was already on another month. But so maybe get ahead on some of the stuff, on your Perkins or on some of the stuff for the fall. Just work ahead. Take a vacation, yeah.
Okay, all of y'all in June have something you have to do. What is it? Come back here. Okay. Checking them, Carol. I'll see if they were paying attention.
And writing the Perkins grant is really important.
Go ahead and get that started. Like I said, I was so envious of Alan Kaminsky, the Sealy CTE director, when he told me we were here June 17th or something. He said, my Perkins is done. So that's a good time to get started. I do want to thank Kay Earless from Region 10 for providing this calendar for us. And does anyone else have any questions or comments over the calendar? Well, y'all did a wonderful job. Thank you very much. Give yourself a hand.